Hello everyone, I'm Jim Lewis, founder of Model Train Technology, and today this is an instructional video on how to set up the G-Scale motorized gate crossing. And we have it set up here. We're going to show you taking it out of the box, and really it's very simple. You just plug it in and get some power, and then we'll talk about hooking up the sensors, and there's a separate video on how to hook up the sound. Again, pretty straightforward. We do want to mention that the crossing gate is not weatherproof. Weatherproof would mean you could dunk it in a pool. We don't advise that. Weather tolerant, probably, although slightly less so than our flashers. So we really recommend that you bring it inside after a running session. I mean, if it gets wet a few times, that's not going to kill it. But to make it waterproof would really be complicated and expensive. But we've taken it as far as we can. We've sealed the components. The paint we use has a ceramic powder in it. We bake the parts. We've sealed everything that we can. And so I just want to let you know that. We'll talk about the documentation. We'll talk about the gate controller, but really it's pretty simple. I'll show you. We're going to run it here in a second. I'm using the inside version of the gate controller. It looks like our signal controllers. The case is slightly larger. It has the magnet. And I've been, I guess, pleasantly surprised at the number of inside G-Scale setups there are. So this was easy. This is going to be the same controller we use for other scale motorized gate crossings. And you need one of these per controller because this has the electronics in it to manage the motor and control the motor. So one controller and one gate. And we've changed the type of plugs we use to make things easier. There are two 1mm JST plugs, these two white things. One is 6 pins and one is 4 pins, and you really can't make a difference. I mean, you can tell the difference, you can't make a mistake. And in here you can see there are two sizes, and really it's just a matter of the smooth side up. It'll only go in one way. So if you're trying to force it, it doesn't seem to be working, and then flip it over. Again, it's very simple. Just pop these in here and just make sure that the surface is flush with the outside of the case. When we add power ever on the gate controller, what it does, if it's in a down position or slightly off, it will calibrate, it'll start the motor and go up to a known fixed position. We'll talk about the stop pin in a minute, but I want to show you, all I'm going to do here is plug in the power, and you'll see the light blip there for a minute, and that's because the gate motor moved ever so slightly to have the stop pin touch the aluminum rod. So it's ready, it's calibrated in the up position, and all we have to do now is I'm going to press the select button twice, 1, 2, and that will activate test mode for the, did I do it wrong? There we go. I guess I didn't push it hard enough. And there it goes with the gate. All right. And so it's in the down position. This is the manual mode of running the gate. I'm going to push the button twice again, 1, 2, and the gate motor will bring it back up into the top position. And it will stop, and every time it does that, it calibrates where the known stop up position is so that it knows how far to go down. All right, so it's really simple. What I'm going to do is start it in the going down position and unplug the power about halfway down. So that could happen, right? So I just unplug the power. So as I mentioned, as the startup, if we just add power, it will go back up, and so every time it adds power, it wants to be in the start position and the up position there. Okay, so let's pause there. Let me show you taking it out of the box and setting it up, and then we'll go into some more details about power supplies and that sort of thing. Okay, let's go through setting up, opening up the box, setting up the gate, motorized gate, and we'll go through power settings, different power sources, pretty much everything you need to get going. All right, so your gate is going to come in a box like this. The only thing that will be in here is the gate and a couple of signs. Your box could have 2 gates in it, won't have more than 2 gates. This one has 1 gate in it, and it's packed in these little nurdles to keep it safe. And we take the cross bucks off to reduce the chance of damage. So this should be pretty, I mean, we've dropped this off the building and all sorts of things to try to test it. Oh, by the way, these nurdles, they're not styrofoam or plastic. They actually disintegrate in water, so biodegradable. So that's pretty cool. All right, so there's the gate, and you'll notice that there's no base on it. It's just like that. Our classic magnetic base system. I'll just leave that there. In a separate box will be the controller. This is the inside controller, and then also the mounting block. These are heavy, and so we don't want to put them inside the same box as this. They'll be in a separate box, and the mounting plate. Now, this does not have the feet on it, but the feet will be in the box. There are 4 of them here, and the cross buck. So I'm going to show you how to put the feet on. Sometimes, so I use the feet here because I'm on a concrete slab out in the back, and then also for demonstration purposes, all of our things here have feet on them. These are a little resin printed. They're pretty tight, and so you kind of come at it at an angle and twist and push them down. So we'll do all of these. Okay. There we go. All right, and pretty simple. Just feed the wires through the hole from the top. And it's designed that if you accidentally knock it, you won't break it. So that's one of our trademark projects or whatever. Okay, so there's the gate. You can face it either way, and that's one of the other reasons, or 2 reasons. One, to avoid the breakage of the crossbuck. So you get the crossbuck sign and the cap for on top. This gate is facing this way. So if the car was driving here, the gate would be on the right-hand side, but it's also possible to put the gate this way. And so by having this movable, you can have it face this way or face this way. So in this case, we're going to face this one this way as the car was going down here, and we're going to just slide this on, and it's kind of loose. So there's a little bit of shrinkage after we print the 3D parts, and it's not perfectly consistent. And so the way to solve the problem to get it to stay put, so this one's tight and doesn't move. That was the demo one we had. This one's a little loose. So for positioning purposes, think of it as temporary, I take some double stick Scotch tape, take a really tiny piece, like a, I don't know, not even a ½ inch, maybe a quarter, just on one side, kind of aim it about where I want it, the height-wise, and then this will slide down and stay put. Okay, right there. Okay, now you're not done, because we want to make sure that the crossbuck does not interfere with the travel of the arm. So turn the crossbuck sideways, aim it, and make sure that the crossbuck is facing the right way that you want it. Okay, and if you want to make it more permanent, take the not the gel but the clear CA glue, super glue, and just drop a little bit into the crack here, and it'll ooze down enough and it'll fit into the pipe. I wouldn't suggest taking this off, coating this with super glue, just because if you need to replace it, does get broken. With just a little bit at the top, it holds it, but you could still remove it if you needed to. And the cap just fits right on top, just like that, and you're done. So that's pretty much the setup, not too difficult. Documentation comes with it. It's a gate controller. The smart people read the documentation. I know I can be lazy about that, but if you get stuck, check the documentation. It's got all the answers in there as best as we could write them out. It's not the full explanation that we can get with a video, but it's pretty good. And you'll get a screwdriver. So that's one of our trademark ideas as well. Okay, so now in that separate box, you will also find, this is the inside gate controller. It comes with a magnetic base, so you can mount it anywhere. The gate, as I mentioned earlier, is not waterproof. It's water tolerant. This is not for outside, because the water will go inside of it. There's a hole here. That's not good. But you can offer, you can elect to purchase the version which has got the case and the circuit board is mounted vertically. I have the power, it will come with a power wire, so I just have a short length of power here, and then we're going to connect up the detect line in a few minutes. So for the demo, let's go back here. We'll just use this one, and the plug has, there are two plugs. There's a 4-pin, 6-pin and a 4-pin. They can only go one way, and they can only go in one slot. So you can't make a mistake on this. Don't force. If it doesn't feel like it's going in, don't jam it in there. All right, power supply. So there are three choices. The most common is the 12-volt 5-amp power supply. Looks like a laptop charger with a AC cord. The reason we like this is it has this little plug. There are two connectors, terminals for the wire, and the barrel plugs in there, so you can take this out and just leave this connected up outside if you'd like, and just plug it in when you need power. Okay, we have the classic power module. This would be for inside, also magnetic mounted, and a wall wart, so the AC adapter will plug into the wall, that cord will go in here, and 12 volts outside. So everything runs on 12 volts DC. Don't hook up a transformer DC output. Don't connect a transformer, you know, that you use to run the trains to this. Lots of funky things about those circuits. All right, so that's one choice. Another choice that we really like, we take this to trade shows, is our solar panel. It has a built-in battery, which is 5,000 milliamps, which is basically 5 amp hours, and it's 12 volts. It's switchable, but it has 12 volts, and we've run it for 2 days straight at trade shows, running this all day long. Works great. So that's our sort of choice, because then I don't have extension cords running around. I can unplug this outside if I want, so a lot of different options. So for now, what we're going to do, one thing about this that people really like, and I'm going to use this in a couple of minutes, is it's got all the terminals here. So for connecting all the different things, for demo purposes here, or inside layout, this is really a convenient way to do it. Any two adjacent connectors. So it doesn't matter that you figure out which one is the positive and which is the negative, because we regulate it inside the circuitry. Just any two adjacent, anything you're going to plug in, those two wires need to be next to each other. Doesn't mean if they're exact sequence or plus or minus. Okay, so as I showed you before, we're going to just plug in the power. I haven't moved the arm or anything, and you may see it blip briefly. There you go, and go off, because what it's doing is calibrating the arm to the up position. We talked about that briefly. I'm going to press the select button here, which is this green button, green for G-scale, and I'm going to press it twice, and the gate will go down. This is manual mode, all right? And it will stay down forever, or until I press the button again twice. So let's do that. And every time it goes up, it hits the stop pin here, and it touches the aluminum pole, and that tells it to go off. Okay, now, one thing I did is I held it here. You'll notice that the red light is flashing. So in an event where the pole is dirty, or it doesn't get to the top for some reason, to save the friction motor, I'll talk a bit more about friction gear, I'll talk about that in a minute, it stops the motor at 6.5 seconds of travel. And just this light will blink. That's telling me that the arm did not make it all the way up to the top. The only way to get out of this position is to unplug the power and plug it back in so that it can reset. And there we go. Okay. All right, so let's put that on hold for a second, and we'll get back to, so let's talk about the friction gear. So the friction gears are two gears that are designed kind of like a shear bolt on a telephone pole. They're designed to let the pole collapse if a vehicle hits it. Kind of the same thing here. The gear has a little bit of play. Now, if you let the gear go on and on and on, it's just going to grind down the friction wheel, and it'll be sloppy. There's a separate video on how to replace that friction gear, but you shouldn't have to. There are no adjustments. It's all electronic, and that's it. All right. So, okay, now that we have the gate crossing moving and controlled by a gate controller. We've calibrated it, we've tested it a few times. We're going to now hook it up to one sensor. You can have multiple sensors, east-west traffic. We're using the Precision Detector Max, which has about a 20-inch range. I'm going to make it really short and show you how to set that up. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to use our power module just for simplicity of connecting up. Typically we're not using this for G-Scale. You'd connect them all up with a power bus, but just so you can see what I'm doing. So coming out of the detector are 3 wires. The 2 red wires are power. So all we have to do is connect them up to 2 adjacent terminals on the power module. It doesn't matter plus or minus, because in the components that we've built, the signal controller, or the gate controller in this case, we regulate it so that we know which side is plus and which one is minus. You don't have to worry about that. Any 2 adjacent terminals all the way along here, and that's why we don't indicate which is plus or minus, because it doesn't matter. All right, so that's hooked up there, and let's give it some power. Let's disconnect the gate controller for the time being, and I'm going to just use my solar power over here and connect it into my power module. So I've got 12 volts coming in, probably a little less than 12 volts, and we should have a green light. Okay, so the way this works, let's pull this out so you can see a little bit more. There's a button here, it's set up. There's another video on setting up the precision detector, but for now, just assume I'm going to set the time all the way to the left, which is a 0 timeout. So when it's tripped, and when it goes away, it goes off automatically. That's called the timeout. So I can lengthen that. Well, let's just do that so you get the idea. I'm going to put it for a couple of seconds. So now it's going to stay on for a couple of seconds after I take my hand away. And for the gate crossing, that's actually what we want, is once the train's gone by, we want some time, 5, 10, 15, 20 seconds, 30 seconds if you want, for the gate to stay down. The other thing I did is I adjusted the range, so instead of having 20 inches, it's about 6 inches, okay? So that's all we're going to do there. While you're fiddling with this, just make sure the power to the gate controller is off, because it'll make it will get confused. It won't know whether to go up or down. All right, so we just put that together, put the case on there, you can see, and I'm going to face it this way so that when I put my hand here, it'll trip it. All right, so we've got power. The only thing to do now is to connect the signal wire to the gate controller. And in this orientation, facing you, the gate control wires are to the right, and there's a green terminal here with 3 pins, or ports, let's say, and we're going to use the bottom one. So the bottom one is the detect. If you look in the manual, it's a good picture of it. We're just going to stick the signal wire. Oops, let's loosen it up. We're going to put the signal wire in there. And these bright lights, I can't quite see it. Come on. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we have the signal controller, or sorry, the gate controller set up, and we have this set up. All right, so it's ready to go. So let's plug in the gate controller, and guess what's going to happen? It should just blink to tell it it's calibrated. There it goes. All right, now I'm going to put my hand in front of the sensor. Now there are 3 modes here. One of them is immediate mode, one of them is a 5-second timeout, and one is a 10-second timeout. What that means is the lights will start flashing before the gate actually goes down. All right, there we go. Gate has gone down, and as long as the train is going by, the gate will stay down. If I take my hand away, the gate will go back up and shut off. All right, so let's do that again. So now, 4, 3, 4, 5, it's about 6 seconds that time. All right, and the gate will go down. And the idea here is on the prototype, the lights will go on, the bell will start flashing, but there may be cars still transiting the crossing. So the idea is the gate doesn't go down until after the cars have left the crossing, and then the gate comes down. Now, the reason for having a 5 and a second and a 10 second is if you have close the entrances first on both sides of the track, you can then if you have 4 gates, so 2 on each side, you can have the first ones preventing more cars from entering the crossing, and then the other 2 another 5 seconds to let the cars exit the crossing. So the first 2 go down, and then the other 2 go down. And so a simple way to change that, oh, I guess I tripped it again. Let's see if we can do that. I'm going to adjust the distance a little bit less here. Okay. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to do 4 pushes. We'll set it to immediate mode. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it flashes. All right, so now it goes down immediately. Okay? And if I take my hand away, it should go back up immediately. All right, let's set it to 5. So 5 pushes for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The controller will flash. Yep, took that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's between 5 and 6 seconds. All right. And I take my hand away, and the gate will go up. And 6 is for 10 seconds. We just made it 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that's setting up the sensor with the gate controller. And now, the one last thing, I'm going to turn all of these off, and I'm going to adjust the timing of the sensor so that after I take my hand away, the gate will still be flashing for a few seconds as the train continues to exit the area. Okay, so now I'm going to trip the gate. It's in the 5-second mode. All right, so train is going by, train is going by, train is going by. Now we're going to step away, and it'll stay down. And you just have to adjust it slightly depending on what your preferences are, and then the gate will go up. All right, so that's the basic setup for the gate controller with one precision detector max. If you wanted to have another one over here, same power configuration, just connect the wires up to the power, and just like here, you have the yellow wire coming from that detector, you plug it into the same place. Now, you might, if you have several detectors, you might connect these up to a terminal block. They're all connected together. That means the logic is if that detection or this detection. So what will happen is the train goes by, it'll hit the first one, it won't start counting until it's finished and past the last one. So these could be spread out, trips it coming into the crossing area, and then stays active until it's exited and past the last detector, and then the timeout that we set it for. There you go. Okay. Adjusting the position of the gate arm. So in the manual mode, pushing this twice will make the arm go down. And there's a trim potentiometer inside here, and we provide you this little screwdriver. This is the only time you'll need to use this other than for the connectors. And the way this works is imagine a dial where straight up is 5 and all the way to one position is 0 and other position is 10. So 5 is off. If I turn the dial this way past 3, it activates and turns on and moves the arm. If I go back to straight up and down, or 5, it stops moving the arm. If I go the other way, it'll make the arm move the other direction, and I move this back. So in the steady state, the arm the dial position should be at 5. And as you're moving the dial, it'll go from this heartbeat. I didn't mention that yet, but every 3 seconds, this little blue light blips. And that's to tell you that the electronics, there's power to the device and it's working and it's ready to receive the detect signal or whatever else. So I'm going to stick the screwdriver in here and I'm going to turn it, and you're going to see, oh, here we go. Now you can see I'm turning it to the left, so it's up and moving it down. So in case you wanted to adjust it slightly. But frankly, it's not really necessary. And okay, and while, see how it's blinking? And now I'm going to turn it, and now it's not blinking, right, other than the heartbeat. So when it's blinking rapidly, that means the setting is in the on position, either left or right or up or down. And for proper operations, we don't want it to do that. We just want to see the heartbeat. So get it back to center. And there you go. So I'm going to push this twice. It will remember that position for the next time. But basically, you're all set. So there we go. Lights go out. Check pin. We're all good. Okay. So, all right. So let's go to hooking up the outside version, and we'll connect the sensor. Okay. So I'm going to hook up to my power module. We'll put these off to the side. And just work on the gate. So there are 2 wires coming out of here, and we're going to just hook them up to the first terminals. Use the screwdriver that's provided. And I'm going to take the inside controller out, so we're going to use the inside controller. And there it is. And let me just connect up these 2 wires. If you have another 12-volt supply, I think I've talked to some of you about that, that's fine. Just make sure it's 12 volts DC, okay? All right, so now, as before, we're going to feed the gate crossing wires up through the block, the second block, and they're going to go through the bottom of the case. This has magnets to keep it there. And in this case, this is sort of upside down now because everything is inside. We have the same, here are the 2 plugs, 4-pin and 6-pin. 6-pin goes in here, smooth side up, smooth side up. Can't make a mistake. And then just slide this back down, feed the wires back through. And there we go. All right, so I pull these out here. And let's hook up to a little bit more cord. Let's hook up to our power module. And there we go. And you saw it flash.